Hey, this is Joe at Gray Bench Electronics. Welcome back to the Pedal Teardown series where I take apart new and interesting pedals and show you what's going on inside. Today we have the Benson Preamp. All right, Benson Preamp. So this is a preamp or gain pedal overdrive, distortion pedal, whatever, from Benson Amps. Supposedly based on, I believe, their Chimera tube amp, just made into pedal form. Exterior controls, we have treble and bass controls, volume and drive, 5mm red LED with the chrome bezel, latching foot switch, but it feels pretty soft. Feels kind of like the Alpha foot switch. Input and output jacks on the top, 1/4 inch Neutrik style with the chrome nut. PCB mounted DC jack, gray powder coat, Benson logo, pretty straightforward. Interesting stuff's on the inside, of course, so let's go ahead and crack open the pedal. All right, so here is the PCB for the Benson Preamp. We got our battery snap here. Just gonna take that off, get it out of the way. So we have the long leg Alpha style potentiometers. Our controls here, our treble is a logarithmic 250K. Bass is a 2 meg linear, 2 meg. Drive control is a logarithmic or audio 1 meg, and the volume control is a audio 100K. That's like gain control, right? Yeah, or drive control, that's that. We also have a couple trim pots on the board here, and they are labeled Q2 and Q3 bias. The value of those pots are 50K, so they're both 50K trim pots. Neutrik jacks, grounding spring that I like. It is the Alpha foot switch like I thought. On the back here, we have the Benson Preamp logo, of course. We've got the access for those trim pots, and those are labeled Do Not Adjust. So we're going to look at the schematic in a second, but these are trim pots on it's going to be the drain for the Q2 and Q3 JFETs. So down here, we have all our surface mount components, and there's Q1 through Q3 going right to left, and those are surface mount J201 JFETs, extremely popular JFET choice, especially anytime you're trying to emulate a tube amp. J21's sort of like the first choice. Unfortunately, J21 and through-hole haven't been available for a while, at least not legitimately. Fairchild was making them. Of course, Fairchild is owned by ON Semiconductor now, or ON Semiconductor, and they don't make the J201 in through-hole anymore. There is still one company, JFET, I believe, is still making the J201, but they are a couple bucks, I think $3 or $4 now. So if you can find through-hole J2FETs, probably 95% chance they're fakes. The other 5%, they're going to be expensive. Luckily, the J201 is still available in surface mount, so you can still get it done. You just got to deal with SMD. Of course, this entire board is pretty much surface mount, including the pots and the jacks and whatnot. But that's fine. Nothing wrong with surface mount. Generally speaking, less noisy than their through-hole counterpart build. So we do have some nice test points here. They're very clearly labeled. Ground probe goes here, black. Power probe goes here. Top trim, bottom trim. And like we saw here, the top trim is labeled Q3 bias. Bottom trim is labeled Q3 bias. We've got our power inlet here. D4 there is most likely a protection diode. C13 is a 100 microfarad filter cap, and C20 is probably a little film cap for filtering as well. Solder job looks great, very even, very clean, nice fillets, no excessive amount of flux on the board. All right, cool. So let's have a look at the schematic, and we'll go over how those trim pots work, and also maybe we'll just pull out a multimeter and just check the position of the trim pots, just in case you do not heed the warnings and do adjust where I told you to not to. All right, so this schematic is from Pedal PCB. It is based on, or is the schematic for their Son of Ben preamp PCB, which is based on the Benson Preamp. If you want to build your own Benson preamp, go check out Pedal PCB's Son of Ben board. So let's go through this. Power stuff here is pretty simple. We've got a series diode here that's going to protect from reverse polarity. If you push positive power in, forward bias the diode, it'll allow current to flow. If you reverse bias the diode here, it'll block the flow of current. LED coming off here, little switch, and current limiter resistor for the LED. And then we've got the two filter caps we saw, which are that one there and that one there, which is 100 microfarad and 100 nanofarad filter cap. Onto the circuit. So we come in, 1 meg pull down resistor, 100 nanofarad, and a 220k input resistor. Another, essentially, I guess it would be the gate leak resistor, I guess you could call that. 1k drain resistor there, or excuse me, 1k source resistor, and then the drain resistor is a 10k. The Son of Ben board here, Pedal PCB integrated a third trim pot for the source, or excuse me, the drain on the Q1. However, the instructions give down here just trim to 2k, and there is a 10k resistor in line. So reasonable to assume that the resistor, the fixed resistor in the Benson preamp is probably about a 12k. Coming out of the drain here, we got a 22 nanofarad cap, 470k resistor here. We've got a 250 picofarad cap, and then our base control, which is a 2 meg linear pot, and then the drive control with essentially a bright cap and a 470k limiter for the bright cap. So this is going to be adjusting essentially the frequency range of the pedal, all right in there. Heading out to our second gain stage, another J201. And this is probably pretty close to what the pedal is, which is 50k trim pot. We see that on the board, 50k trim pot, and a 10k fixed resistor. And we've got the source here with a 1k resistor and a 10k bypass. Coming out here, 22k, 100k resistor into a second gain stage, just like it, 1k and a 10 microfarad bypass. Same setup here with the fixed resistor and the trim pot. Coming out to the end of the pedal here, we have our 22 nanofarad cap with a 250k variable resistor, so it's essentially like a variable low-pass filter. And then another 22k, and it's filtering here, 2.2 nanofarad, just roll off some high-end stuff, and a 100k audio output volume control. The instructions here, we're looking at the trim 1, trim 2, and trim 3 is recommended to set to 4 volts for the drains of Q2 and Q3. So let's pull out the multimeter, check the PCB, see where the controls are sitting for our board as it sits. All right, so let's check the adjustment on the trim pots here. So again, these are the drain resistances for the Q2 and Q3. The schematic specified we want to see 4 volts across our test points here. Now, the power supply for the Benson preamp here is not regulated, so it's going to depend on the voltage of your power supply, or in this case, battery, where these sit. But I've got a battery here. I think it's a little higher than 9 volts or so. So let's plug that in, and we're pretty close. So this is testing the Q2 bias, and we're at 3.961. Can maybe make a little bit of an adjustment there. Let's see. So you can see as I adjust that, the drain voltage is changing. So we're going to come back down and try to get it right about 4 volts. That's good enough for rock and roll there. Let's clip on to the second. Let's see, can we get this? Yeah, good enough. There's our Q3 bias. Let's come in here, see if we can make it a little better. Yeah, it's fine right there. All right. So that's how you do it. If you want to come in here and just double check that your Benson preamp is adjusted correctly, you can use the little test points here. Just make sure you're reading 4 volts across the bottom 2 lugs and then diagonal. And if you're not, adjust the little trim pots here. Ideally, it came pretty close just out of the box here, assuming that's what Benson had it at. But never hurts to check it. But you could also experiment a little bit. Feel free to go up to maybe 5 volts or down 3 volts, see what it sounds like. Because you have that fixed drain resistance there, you're not going to hurt anything by winding those trim pots up or down. It's just not going to sound the way Benson wants. All right, so that's the PCB for the Benson preamp. Let's go ahead and put the pedal back together. All right, that concludes the teardown of the Benson preamp. If you have any questions or recommendations for a pedal you want to see on a future teardown episode, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate you hitting the like button and subscribing, and hit the notification bell if you want to know when I make a new video. I am Joe from Gray Bench Electronics. Thank you for watching.